We know that we train in the harshest of environments and we don't stop when the weather gets bad.
In order to survive, just to survive, your drills have to be world class.
I think the most important thing is survivability, you know, being able to outlast our enemy.
Every moment you're in the Arctic, it is trying to hurt you or kill you.
So training in Norway not only prepares you for battle and operations in the high north, it prepares you for operations all over the world. My early experience was I passed out of recruit training. A few months later, went to Norway, done a really hard, arduous Norway, and then the next again winter, I was in Afghanistan. So the skills to keep warm, to still operate when the conditions are bad, were all learnt from Norway. And that's been a real solid foundation to my career in the Royal Marines. If you take the worst case scenario, say a peer adversary has taken ground in the high north and 3 Commando Brigade as UK Defence's experts in mountain and cold weather warfare, we'd be sent in first, sort of pave the way for the remainder of the force. We'd look to hit softer targets, so logistical nodes, small teams that are out and about enabling greater actions, forward air controllers, drone operators, and targets that can be hit that have maximum effect. Now, without shelter, without food, without water, the enemy is severely restricted in this environment. So if we can take out that support to the frontline enemy troops, we're going to be doing a good job.
We've got a long history with Norway in terms of the formation of commandos, and some of the very first operations in World War II were conducted up and along the Norwegian coastline. We've been meaningfully training in the Arctic, in Norway, for over half a century. And it's that sort of collective experience which we see distilled down into our mountain leaders. And it's one of the reasons why we can take people relatively unfamiliar with the Arctic and very quickly train them up to a good standard.
So mountain leaders are the UK defence specialists in Arctic and mountain warfare. To operate in the mountains, it takes a combination of really extremely difficult skills. So amphibiosity, you've got cliff assault and reconnaissance. Now, doing that in the mountains is extremely difficult. Doing it in the Arctic is just as hard, if not harder. Our secondary role to the operational side of things is to train the rest of 3 Commando Brigade in those skills. So Arctic and mountainous warfare.
Ultimately, right, it's only you, now that you're in that situation, that's going to get yourself out of it. By being proactive in non-permissive environments,
Heard a few lads back on camp talking about how arduous Norway is. I've enjoyed the whole course, I'll be honest. Some lads will think a lot differently. Some lads have never skied in their lives. It's the first time they've put skis on. That in itself is a challenge. And then as soon as you add a weapon system, your battle kit, and also a Bergen to that, it starts getting really, really difficult.
So there's many dangers that come with working in a cold weather environment, particularly Norway. The rate of cold weather injuries, if you're untrained, would be extremely high. You just need to look back at previous wars, and large chunks of forces were brought to the knees through just cold weather injuries alone, through maybe a lack of food, which would then cause a lack of energy in the body, and then hypothermia. Hypothermia goes hand in hand with frostbite. Operating out here, it's not only the snow and the cold, it's the mountainous environment. All this is conducive to bringing a force that is normally operable all over the world to absolutely inoperable if they're untrained. There's a few different types of shelter we can use. The first one, if you're in the tree line, is a brushwood shelter. They're quite time consuming to build, so like a lean-to using branches and wood, stuff to insulate you from the ground, block the wind. The other one is a quincy, so if you've not got that much snow, you could pile up snow in a big mound, flatten it all down and dig into it, and it's essentially a snow shelter. I tend to use and teach as much as possible either a snow cave, so digging into sort of heavy snow bank. It's minimal hours to construct, minimal effort, but you're out of the elements, totally out of the elements. The temperature outside could be minus 20, but inside with a candle on, and maybe a 4-man team to heat the inside space with a candle, you're looking at about 0 degrees.
For Royal Marine Commandos, Norway is in our blood in that respect. It's always been one of those almost rites of passage, rightly or wrongly. There are some instances where you probably don't feel like a real bootneck until you've done a Norway.
So the icebreaker drills, I mean, that's a thing that everyone really affiliates to Norway in general, jumping in that ice cold water, getting the shock of your life.
So if somebody's went through the ice, they have a number of effects that happen. So cold shock is when the body first experiences unexpected, extreme cold water all over the body. If they're in there for a long time, then that's when it becomes really dangerous. The chances of hypothermia after a few minutes of in there are increased greatly. If there's a high wind, that is also a massive concern for us, because by convection, the body is cooled rapidly. Once you're able to survive, that is a good start. If you can't manoeuvre out here, it seriously hinders the output that you can have. So we like to concentrate a large chunk of our training towards mobility. It's won wars in the past, with the Finnish looking at their winter war back in the 40s, and going back thousands of years, it's always been mobility that's the issue.
I've been skied a few times. It does differ quite considerably. So I was quite confident coming out here. I quickly realised how much more difficult it is over this cross-country terrain.
The nature of the Norwegian coastline is quite unique. There's a lot of places that we can secretly access this high north from the coastline, a lot of hidden places. But we do need specialists to recce those areas prior to going in. So the shore reconnaissance teams of SRS, they do the beach recce prior to anyone else. So SRS are they're surveillance and reconnaissance squadron. So they're the forefront of 3 Commando Brigade, essentially the eyes and ears of the brigade. again filled predominantly with mountain leaders. They're the sort of pointiest end of the stick when it comes to 3 Commando Brigade.
For the United Kingdom, Norway is our closest Arctic partner. And whilst that interest has perhaps waxed and waned whilst other events have been occurring, there's little doubt now, with the Northern Sea route beginning to open up, and what we're seeing is increased competition, perhaps starting to emerge around the Arctic. Really, our role is to help ensure that those threats do not materialise by being able to show the role the United Kingdom would play if those threats were to start to become manifest.
So we definitely go heavy on the fight phase, because that's where the real difficulties are encountered, and that's where the development and experience is gained the most.
We had already done 2 weeks skiing and getting ourselves prepped for the final phase. It was just a little bit more difficult than putting all your tactical responsibilities, incorporating that into the basic stuff that you learned prior.
So the idea in a future conflict of small, agile commando teams at reach causing absolute mayhem will force them to deal with the problem, one way or another. These smaller teams will be able to blend into that background, cause the damage, and evaporate again. And that, for me, as a commando, is a genuinely exciting prospect.